tell us, when will these things be? And what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?
Here's today's prophecy update. The establishment has become an issue in the present presidential campaign. Do you even know what the establishment is? Do you feel like you have been voting for Tweedledee or Tweedledum for the last 40 years? What or who is this hidden hand that seems to control both Republican and Democratic parties? Or is that all just a conspiracy theory? We all need to understand the answer to this question before we vote in less than 2 weeks. We'll rip the cover off and explain the establishment on today's edition of End of the Age. Now, it's so interesting that this term, the establishment, has been kicked around all during this presidential campaign. Yet, I would dare to say that the vast majority of Americans don't really have a good understanding of what this term, the establishment, refers to, or does it even exist at all? I've decided it's critical to the future of America that all of us understand what is meant by the establishment. Let me give you a few quotes from people who are at the top of the establishment, or at least very much involved as part of the establishment. Mr. Amschel Rothschild, who was the grandfather of the incredible Rothschild fortune, which most people believe is the largest fortune in the entire world. Amschel Rothschild said, "Give me control over a nation's money, and I care not who makes her laws." Mr. David Rockefeller, the chairman of the board of Chase Manhattan Bank, now known as Chase Bank because J.P. Morgan and Chase merged together, David Rockefeller said this in his memoir published in 2002 on page 405. "Some even believe we, the Rockefeller family, are part of a secret cabal working against the best interest of the United States, characterizing my family and me as internationalists, and of conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure. One world, if you will. If that's the charge, I stand guilty, and I am proud of it." Now, this is the same David Rockefeller that was the mentor to none other than Henry Kissinger. He also probably appointed the last several chairmen of the Federal Reserve Board. He also is always present at the Bilderberger meetings and at global meetings that meet around the world each year. Nevertheless, the next quote comes from Strobe Talbot. He stated in his article, "Birth National Sovereignty as we have known it will cease to exist in the 21st century. We will then all answer to a single global authority." Then none other than Hillary Clinton said, "My dream is a hemispheric common market with open trade and open borders. Sometime in the future, with energy that is as green and sustainable as we can get it, powering growth and opportunity for every person in the hemisphere." Now, this speech was made by Hillary Clinton in May of 2013 to the Brazilian bank Banco Itaú. Now, she made this speech. She's kept it secret. However, It became public in a recent release of WikiLeaks. So we look at people here that are planning things that they won't even always divulge. Nevertheless, little by little, it's coming out. These are people that we refer to as the establishment. There are people these are people who want to establish a one world government, and they are planning to do it. These are people with incredible power. They control money, they control media, and yes, they control politicians, because money controls politicians. Like Amschel Rothschild said, give me control over a nation's money, and I care not who makes her laws. Okay, now let's look at this straightforward, because we're trying to figure out, is there really this thing called the establishment that is controlling America and other nations of the world? Let me ask you this question. Why would anyone not want to defend our borders as mandated by U.S. law? Now, we've experienced the most amazing thing over the last 8 years or so, and even beyond, and that is people come into the United States without permission. They just come in and stay. Now, I'm not talking about a little problem here. Estimates run around 12 million, maybe more. Think about that. 12 million human beings right now in the United States of America illegally. Now, that is not an accident. That is a hidden policy, and it's a policy which breaks United States law. So why is this being done? Is this just incredible stupidity? Or is there a method behind the madness? Next question. Why would we run huge trade deficits year after year, forcing our national debt to double in the last 8 years? Now, grasp this, ladies and gentlemen. I'm talking about from George Washington in 1776 until Barack Obama. Now, think about this clearly. In, what would it be, 2008. 1776 to 2008. Our national debt was about 9 to 10 trillion. Today, our national debt is over 19 trillion, going on 20 trillion. So we borrowed as much money in the last 8 years in the present Obama administration as was borrowed by all other presidents combined over the last 240 years. 8 years, 240 years. Now, is that an accident? Or is that a deliberate policy for some reason? Okay, let's delve a little bit deeper, because I don't want to tell you anything that's untrue. That wouldn't be right for me to do it, and it would not be doing you a service whatsoever. But let's get behind the scenes. First of all, the goal of the establishment is to destroy national sovereignty. They believe that national sovereignty is the problem. They believe the nation state has outlived its usefulness, and that we should all be melted into a system of one world government. They even have a name for the process. It's called globalization. I'm sure you've heard the term. More recently, the term has been shortened to globalism, and it is an issue in the present presidential campaign. But the problem is people still don't fully grasp. I mean, let's face it. Most of us have this frustrated feeling that we've been voting for Tweedledee or Tweedledum. You know, you can make sure a person does what you want them to do if you give them two choices and you don't care which one they choose, but you give them the illusions of choosing. Well, that's basically been what's going on in America for the last 50 years. We've had two choices for president, but they've been Tweedledee or Tweedledum. And no matter which one we chose, basically the same old policies, and I'm talking about the policies of globalization, have gone on and on and on. It was, after all, Herbert Walker Bush, after the fall of the Berlin Wall, that very dramatically announced that we now were on the brink of the new world order. And then it was under Bill Clinton that Strobe Talbot was the Deputy Secretary of State, and he's the one that stated that in the 21st century, national sovereignty would cease to exist. We would all answer to a single global authority. Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State under Barack Obama, and she's the one that said, my dream is a hemispheric common market with open trade and open borders sometime in the future, with energy that is as green and sustainable as we can get it, powering growth and opportunity for every person in the hemisphere. Now, what'd she say? Open trade, open borders. It's a speech she made before the Brazilian bank, Banco Itaú, in May of 2013. So the establishment are those who believe the nation state is outdated, that it no longer serves its purpose. They actually think it's dangerous. They actually refer to nationalism as a form of terrorism, believe it or not. They see it as dangerous because they say if every state has its own army, then when there's a disagreement, then the only answer is war. We need to get rid of all the nation states. We need to get rid of all the armies. We need to put them all under the United Nations. And then we would have no more war because there would only be one army. Now, never mind what happens if Adolf Hitler gets control of the only arm that's left. Now you're going to have the worst tyranny the world's ever known. However, they would argue vehemently that'll never happen. But it will happen because the Bible prophesies exactly it will happen, only it won't be Adolf Hitler. It will be someone worse. The Bible calls him the beast, or the Antichrist, or the man of sin, or the son of perdition. Many names. One place it calls him that wicked one. But he is coming. He's alive on the earth right now. And he's just itching to get his hands on this new world order, this global society that is being built, and we're further than you think. You say, now I can't, you're jumping off the deep end here. Can you prove to me that we're nearing a world government? All right, listen up. Do you have your notepad ready? Number one, if there's no world government, then why do we have a world court? Why do we have a world bank? Why do we have a world health organization? Why do we have a world trade organization? Why do we have an international monetary fund? Why do we use terms like world community or the international community? Can anybody tell me what the world community is? If it's not referring to a system of world governance, that's exactly what it is. Already, most of the nations of the world believe we have reached a consensus where the world community can speak with one voice and tell Israel what to do, or any other nation that steps out of line. The world community says you must do this, you must do that. It is simply referring to the fact that there has been such a consensus reached that they believe that we can start operating as a world governmental system even now. Ask Israel. Believe me, Israel understands the pressure coming from the world community because UNESCO just issued another condemnation of Israel today. And Israel's been fighting it vociferously to try to reverse this because they understand that power is moving more and more toward the top. It's called the establishment. What is the establishment? It's those people who have bought into the global dream of a one world government. Let me remind you one more time. I'm quoting David Rockefeller, chairman of the board of Chase Manhattan Bank, which merged with J.P. Morgan, which now is known as Chase Bank. This man, who was the mentor of Henry Kissinger, who's supposedly the most brilliant foreign policy mind of the 20th century, David Rockefeller said this, and I got to tell it to you again. I'm quoting directly from his memoirs, which I own. Some even believe we, the Rockefeller family, are part of a secret cabal working against the best interests of the United States, characterizing my family and me as internationalists, and of conspiring with others around the world, other members of the establishment, to build a more integrated global political and economic structure. One world, if you will. If that's the charge, I stand guilty, and I am proud of it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that's the best definition of the establishment I know of, and it is rife at the very top of both the Republican and the Democratic parties right now. That's the reason all of a sudden we're in this huge struggle with Donald Trump railing against the establishment, because he understands globalism and he knows why people in his own party are fighting him tooth and nail as well. So that's what's going on right now. He understands that he is a threat to bring down this plan for one world government. I'm not done. Let's go a little bit further. So we're not defending our borders because we don't believe in borders anymore. We believe in one world. We are running huge deficits because we believe the whole world needs to be equal. Therefore, the United States must get poorer. We must accept poorer trade deals so we can help other nations rise to our level. So where did this all begin? Is there a method behind the madness? There is. It began 100 years ago, believe it or not, and there was one man, the driving force behind it. There were three entities that were created within an 8-year period. The first one was the Federal Reserve Act of 1913. That's what took the control of the United States money out of the government's hands, out of Congress's hands, and placed it under the control of a private corporation called the Federal Reserve. Now, the Federal Reserve is not federal. It's owned by private stockholders. Nevertheless, that happened in 1913. 1916, an organization was formed called the Council on Foreign Relations. 1921, another organization was formed called the Brookings Institute. So the Federal Reserve was formed to control the money. That was the big one. Because you control the money, we don't care who makes your laws. Number two, the Council on Foreign Relations was formed as a private club to look for bright minds that can be molded and shaped to be the rulers of the future. And 50% of all cabinet members in the last 50 years have come from this private club. And it doesn't matter whether the Republicans are in power or the Democrats in power. Ladies and gentlemen, are you listening to me? It doesn't matter which party's in power as long as the establishment is in power. And the establishment, well, you can almost call it the Council on Foreign Relations. And then there's the Brookings Institute, America's number one liberal think tank. They write speeches for the president. They write policy papers for the president. They are charged with developing the thinking, controlling the media, making sure you think about the right things. It's called the Brookings Institute. Now, there was one man, a European by the name of Paul Warburg, who was on the first Federal Reserve Board. He was trustee of the Council on Foreign Relations. He was trustee of the Brookings Institute. Is that a coincidence? Are we so naive and so gullible that we think that one man, a European, who founded these three institutes that are controlling America? The Federal Reserve controls the economy, whether it speeds up, slows down, the money supply, where the interest rates are set. It is in control. And the Federal Reserve is not federal. It is a private corporation with private stockholders. The Council on Foreign Relations, they supply 50% of all cabinet members and almost 100% of all secretaries of state over the last 50 years. How does this happen? And I'm talking about it doesn't matter. It does not matter whether the Republicans are in power or the Democrats are in power. Now, this is really a funny one. Would you like to know when Mr. Ben Bernanke left as chairman of the Federal Reserve, he got a new job? You're never going to believe it. He got a new job at the Brookings Institute. Wait a minute. Are they related? You better believe they are. They're as intertwined as 3 strands of a braided rope. Okay. So I hope you're hearing me today. There is this thing called the establishment. And that's the reason they are screaming to high heavens right now, because they're on the brink of possibly losing their power. I read a statistic recently that 95% of the media in their political contributions made them to liberal Hillary Clinton. 95%. And these are the people that you turn on the radio, their voice is what you will hear. You turn on the television, their voice is what you will hear. You read the newspaper, their voice is what you will hear. It is the steady drumbeat of liberalism, of one worldism, of the establishment. That's what's going on here. That's the reason it feels like we're experiencing a political earthquake right now, is because these people are screaming to high heaven and they are determined they're going to stop this whole thing. Now, I'm almost out of time, but let me take a moment to tell you about our prophecy conference that will be held in downtown Jerusalem this coming Sunday, October the 30th. It will be held in the Kalau building at 97 Jaffa Street in Jerusalem. It's on the first floor in the auditorium called the Pavilion. Now, if you have friends or acquaintances in Jerusalem, let them know. It's at 7:30 Sunday evening, October the 30th. I'll be speaking on From Here to Armageddon. I'll be speaking on what the establishment is going to be trying to do and what God is going to do. Because there are 2 paths, and we will either be on one or on the other. But the title of my message will be From Here to Armageddon. If you cannot be there, we are going to make it available on live streaming around the world. And so just make plans to tune in. That will be at 7:30 p.m. Israel time. If you want to translate that to your time back in the United States, that would be 11:30 in the morning on Sunday morning, Central Time, 12:30 East Coast time. But it will be archived later so that you can actually listen later. This is going to be a huge event. Now, let me tell you, Mr. Donald Trump understands the establishment. He keeps talking about it, but I fear that Americans don't still know what it is. An article appeared in Washington, D.C., written by Julia Hahn, and it's entitled Moment of Reckoning, Donald Trump, Our Independence Day is at Hand. It arrives finally on November 8th. I thought we declared independence on July the 4th, 1776. Well, he thinks that we have to have a new Declaration of Independence because we've been under the control of this hidden hand called the establishment. Let me give you just a little taste of it before we run out of time. This is our moment of reckoning as a society and as a civilization itself, Trump declared. This is not simply another 4-year election. This is a crossroads in the history of our civilization that will determine whether or not we, the people, reclaim control over our government. Our Independence Day is at hand, and it arrives finally on November the 8th, Trump told voters, adding, our great civilization here in America and across the civilized world has come upon a moment of reckoning. We've seen it in the United Kingdom, where they voted to liberate themselves from global government and global trade deal and global immigration deals that have destroyed their sovereignty and have destroyed many of those nations. When I read this, now I knew all this, but when I read this, I thought, Donald Trump gets it. He understands that we're on the road to a global government. He understands the effect of global trade deals. He understands global immigration deals. And he understands that those are the methods being used to destroy our sovereignty and to suck us into a one world governmental system. When I read that, I thought, wow, Trump understands globalism. Whatever else you may think about the guy. And I promise you, he's not a saint. But he does understand globalization. And he understands that Hillary Clinton is for globalization. I already read the quote to you early in the program. She said, my dream is a hemispheric common market with open trade and open borders sometime in the future with energy that is as green and sustainable as we can get it, powering growth and opportunity for every person in the hemisphere. Now, what did she say? I am for open trade and open borders. And she's promising that she will increase immigration, illegal immigration, into the United States as soon as she becomes president. So we are in very much of a battle. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me just pause to say this to all of you. We are really in a battle, and it will go beyond this presidential election because it's going to take us all the way to the Battle of Armageddon. Please join us here at End Time Ministries because we're in this fight all the way to the second coming of Jesus Christ. If you're not yet a partner with End Time, do it today. We need you so much. God needs you. America needs you. To become a partner with End Time Ministries, give us a call. The number to call, 1-800-END-TIME. That's 1-800-363-8463. And while you're at it, get your own copy of the series From Here to Armageddon. 800 End Times, the number to call.
From Here to Armageddon, a new exciting 8-lesson series to share with your friends and family. Order yours right away.
Answering many questions like how far are we from the Battle of Armageddon? What will happen between now and then? Where are we on the timeline? Your questions answered in this exciting 8-lesson series, From Here to Armageddon.
Go to endtime.com or call 1-800-END-TIME. That's 1-800-END-TIME, 1-800-363-8463. Order yours right away.
I know someone's praying for you can be cliche, and some might think that it's just a saying. But here at End Time Ministries, we actually are praying for you. Irvin and the End Time team begin each morning by taking your name directly to the Lord in prayer for our partners and requests submitted by each of you the previous day. The Bible tells us in Matthew 18, where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, there am I in the midst. We may not know each of you personally, but we feel like we are very much connected because you are one of the reasons that this ministry is able to spread our message throughout the entire world. We know this can be a very difficult time for everyone. That makes you partnering with us through prayer and your giving very special. Call 1-800-END-TIME or go to endtime.com and partner with End Time today. You can help make a world impact.
If your radio station only carries the first 30 minutes of End of the Age, go to endtime.com and click the Watch button to continue today's broadcast. You can also finish up later by clicking the Archives button.
We are taking your calls in this half of the program. The number to call to be on the air with me, 877-END-TIME. Jim Stiggleman is anchoring our program back in Plano. I am broadcasting today from the beautiful city of Jerusalem. Jerusalem means city of peace, the city that has seen more war than every other city on the planet. What a paradox. Its name is the city of peace, and it's had more wars than any other city. But Jerusalem will ultimately become a city of peace. Jesus Christ will return to this city within the next few years. How many? At least 7, maybe 8, maybe 9, maybe 10. I don't know. I can't see it going much beyond that, but I can't tell you for certain. But he will come back to this place. As a matter of fact, I'm looking out the window of my hotel room right now, and I'm looking at the Mount of Olives. That's where he's going to come back to. It tells us that in Zechariah chapter 14, verse number 2 through verse number 4. He'll come and plant his feet right there during the Battle of Armageddon, when Israel is reeling on the brink of defeat at the hands of the United Nations, the world governmental organization that will soon take control of most of the world. He's going to come back, fight for the Jewish people, put down the governments of men, and establish his kingdom, a kingdom that will never pass away, never be destroyed. And if you are born again, you will be part of his kingdom. When he comes back, as he descends from heaven, his born-again church is going to be changed from mortal to immortal. We will then be caught up to meet Jesus in the air. We will come with him here to the Mount of Olives, and we will be immortal. We will fight with Jesus Christ against the powers of this world, put down the establishment, if you please, and we will establish the true establishment, the kingdom of God upon the earth, Jesus Christ, and he will rule from this place for 1,000 years. And guess what's going to happen? When the throne of the Messiah is established here in Jerusalem, there will not be one war for 1,000 years. And that's when its name will really mean something. City. We are taking your programs, so to be on the air with me and Jim. The number to call is 877-END-TIME. That's 877-363-8463 to reach our operators to from here to Armageddon. That number is 1-800-END-TIME to reach him. 877-END-TIME. Now, while you're dialing, and we do have open lines, by the way, while you're dialing, let me go back and just give you a little bit more of this article in this speech that Donald Trump was making. He said, but the central base of world political power is right here in America, and it is our corrupt political establishment that is the greatest power behind the efforts at radical globalization and the disenfranchisement of working people. Their financial resources, speaking about the establishment, are virtually unlimited. Their political resources are unlimited. Their media resources are unmatched. And most importantly, the depths of their immorality is absolutely unlimited. Trump highlighted the now well-documented collusion between the global special interest, corporate media, and Hillary Clinton, who champions policies to cede U.S. sovereignty in order to enrich these global financial powers, her special interest friends, and her donors. Trump slammed what he described as our illusion of democracy, explaining how our political process is controlled by a small handful of global special interest rigging the system. I've been telling you for years that we have illusions of democracy, that we're really voting for Tweedledee and Tweedledum, because the same powers have seized control of both the Republican and the Democratic Party. That's the reason, even though you and me elected a majority in the House and in the Senate, still President Obama was able to get Obamacare through, because they're really working on the same side. And that's the reason so many establishment Republicans are trying to take Donald Trump down, is because they understand that they've been working on this system for actually 100 years to get us ready to melt the United States into the one world governmental system. And Trump is a threat to that system. Now, I've been hoping from the beginning that he really understands what's going on. And when I read this article, I thought, I believe the guy really understands what's going on, because most politicians themselves, if they do understand it, they won't let you know. Let me give you a little bit more of the article, and then we're going to be going to the phones. Talking about the illusions of democracy, he's explaining how our political process is controlled by a small handful of global special interest rigging the system. Give me control over a nation's money, and I don't care who makes your laws. Trump went on to explain that the Clinton machine, working through its arm in the corporate media, has declared war, not just against him, but against the American people who want to reclaim their government to represent their needs and interests rather than simply representing the desires of corporate donors and transnational elites. I understand that the head of Facebook, I believe it is, just recently gave $25 million just this week to the Clinton campaign. Trump went on to say, this is a struggle for the survival of our nation, believe me, and this will be our last chance to save it on November the 8th. Remember that. Now, whether that proves to be true or not, I do not know, because I believe I see what the Bible prophesies for the United States of America, but this may well be our last chance to save it. The political establishment that is trying to stop us is the same group responsible for our disastrous trade deals, massive illegal immigration, and economic and foreign policies that have bled our country dry. The Clinton machine is at the center of this power structure. We've seen this firsthand in the WikiLeaks documents in which Hillary Clinton meets in secret with international banks to plot the destruction of U.S. sovereignty in order to enrich these global financial powers, her special interests, friends, and her donors. Well, it goes on and on and on. It almost takes my breath away, to tell you the truth. I hope we understand what's going on. Now, I've been talking about these issues for many years here on End of the Age. I've been talking about the Council on Foreign Relations. I've been talking about the Federal Reserve. I've been talking about the Brookings Institute, on and on and on. But every time an election rolls around, same old disappointments. Will it be the same this time? Donald Trump claims that he is giving us a true choice. Hopefully that is true. Well, it's time to go to the phones now. And like I said, Jim Stiglman is anchoring us back in Plano. I'm here in beautiful Jerusalem. Sorry about your luck, all of you out there. We have about 82 people joining us on Friday for the tour of a lifetime. It is going to be so incredible. It's going to be so special. Anyway, I got to quit talking about that. Oh, if you'd like to come next spring, April 30th, we're going to have a 14-day tour, Israel and Rome. It is going to be amazing. So plan to go with us. If you miss this one, make your plans for the spring. You can call us, by the way, 800-END-TIME, ask to speak to someone about the tour, and they'll tell you what you need to do. Right now, though, time to get to the phones. And, Jim, it's yours.
All right, 1-877-END-TIME is an on-air number to talk to Irvin, 1-877-363-8463. Let's start out today in Arkansas with Joshua. You're first up.
Good afternoon, Ross. I probably will say good morning to you, sir, or good evening. I'm not sure what time it is in Jerusalem.
Actually, it is 11:38 at night in Jerusalem. We're 8 hours ahead of you, so it's 11:38 at night, and I'm staying up just so I can talk to you.
Oh, well, then good evening to you, sir. I actually wanted to, I've been listening to you for almost 20 years now. I watched our first End Time series about 17 years ago, and so I've been a huge supporter and follower. But I've got two questions. One, when you're saying establishment, is that the same as progressivism that has infiltrated both left and right? And my next question is...
Yes, it is.
If Trump gets elected, will Obama still try to force the meeting between Palestine and Israel to sign the peace treaty? And how do you think Trump is going to line up with that? So I will hang up and listen.
Okay, thank you very much, Joshua. Two questions. Number one, the establishment is what's called progressivism. As a matter of fact, it is simply socialism, which is simply communism. We are headed straight into the teeth of a one-world communistic government. Now, if you don't believe it, ladies and gentlemen, I know it's hard to believe. You're saying, no, you're getting too radical. Wait a minute. The new Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, just chosen, taking power January 1 over the United Nations, January 1, 2017. He is a socialist, but not just a socialist. He was the head of the Socialist International. The Socialist International is nothing but Marxism. And Samantha Powers, our ambassador to the United Nations, said this is an excellent choice. Ladies and gentlemen, you never catch me saying choosing a Marxist to head the world was a wonderful and excellent choice, but that's what she said because she believes in socialism. Obama believes in socialism. Hillary Clinton believes in socialism. So yes, when we talk about progressivism, that's what we're talking about now. The other question, a very astute question that Joshua asked, there's rumors going around that President Obama may decide to sponsor a resolution at the United Nations which would condemn the settlements. And that would make the settlements, Israel's presence there, it would make Israel an occupying power, which would be against international law, which then would make Israel vulnerable to international sanctions and ultimately invasion. Now, don't think this is too far out because the Bible clearly prophesies eventually the United Nations is going to invade Israel. It says in Zechariah 14:2, I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle. So already things are lining up. But will Obama do that between November the 8th and January the 20th when he leaves office? Well, if he does, I still would accept Donald Trump. I would expect Donald Trump to reverse that action or to ignore it completely. He may even withdraw funding from the United Nations. Now, what would Hillary Clinton do? Well, she claims to favor Israel. She has stated that she will move the embassy. She favors the embassy, U.S. embassy being in Jerusalem. Well, if she's elected, watch and see if it happens. I will be shocked if she does that, unless she does it within the context of a peace agreement between Palestinians and Israelis. It's going to be very interesting to watch, but will President Obama do this? Well, I don't know. I think he would come in for incredible condemnation. I think he would lose all support from both the House and the Senate if he tried to do that. I think it would cause a huge uprising. I don't expect him to do it, frankly, but I do expect there to be a peace agreement in the very near future. We'll be taking more of your calls. We'll try to get to all of them. So if you're on hold, stay right where you are. You're listening to End of the Age. And the end time is right now. That's the reason this program is so important to you and to everyone listening. Stay with us. We'll be back in just a moment.
If ever people need to hear the unvarnished truth, it is now. There are some subjects that are not politically correct to talk about, but they're urgent. That's why I'm grateful for End Time Magazine. If you're not a subscriber, you're missing information that will really impact your life. End Time has a bi-monthly magazine that explains how current events are fulfilling Bible prophecy. You can get a 2-year subscription for only $29. You can also get a bulk subscription and pass them out to your church. We have gotten reports that End Time Magazine has caused spiritual awakenings in churches when they see the prophecies being fulfilled right now. You can start your own ministry and leave them in doctors' offices, libraries, laundromats. You never know if you might be responsible for saving someone who is searching for the unvarnished truth. That's what the magazine did in my life. Call 1-800-363-8463. That's 1-800-END-TIME and get your subscription today.
If you're not yet a subscriber to End Time Magazine, do it immediately. The cover issue, this particular edition, is Globalism, the 800-pound gorilla in the living room. You will read all about it, what I said on this program today, and a whole lot more. You need to be a subscriber to End Time Magazine. Do it right now. Call 1-800-END-TIME. You can subscribe either for the physical copy or you can subscribe electronically. Either way will be great for you. So do it now. Let's get right back to the phones. Jim, back to you.
All right, let's start this segment out in Oklahoma with Joel. You're up.
Hey, Pastor Irvin, how are you today?
I'm doing wonderful, Joel. Thank you.
Hey, it's good to talk to you from Jerusalem. I'm looking forward to the New World Order, but Jesus at the head of it, aren't you?
Well, that would be great, and I'm all for that. I'm for world government when we have the perfect person to run it, which we don't have right now. But when Jesus runs it, it's going to be wonderful.
Irvin, do you see that the New World Order, I don't know, I have felt I don't know how to put this, as I prayed daily and as I asked God or Jesus for guidance, I feel a sense of a burden has been lifted off of me the last couple of weeks, that Donald Trump is going to take our nation in a different direction than what it has been, and that he is pro-Israel. He says he's going to move the embassy to Jerusalem, and I know that we're going to protect Israel. Do you think that God has lifted a little bit of judgment off of us? That's the way I feel. We probably, when World War III takes place, we're probably going to have people die. But do you do you feel that way, or is it only me? That's the question I want to ask you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Joel. And that is a very important question too, by the way. Will we escape? Is this an act of God to turn America back to sovereignty and to fulfill the role that we're supposed to fill at this time? It may be. However, if Donald Trump does not win, it's still going to happen, even if it's 4 years from now, or God forbid, 8 years from now. I do not know for certain who will win this particular election campaign. However, there does need to be a turning back, and I do believe in the prophecies of the Bible that it clearly depicts that the United States will not be a part of the New World Order. We're going to back out. We're going full bull into it right now. We're going straight forward into it, but it appears we're going to back out. If Mr. Trump were elected, he, according to what he's saying, would back us out of that. If he's not elected, it still has to happen later, even if it's after 4 years of Hillary Clinton or after 8 years of Hillary Clinton. Someone is going to have to come along. God is going to have to help us reverse this trend towards globalization and return to national sovereignty. So it is going to happen. It looks like this may be our chance. We'll have to wait and see. Hey, listen, Joel, thank you very much. I want to get the rest of our callers in, so I'm going to let you go. And Jim, back to you.
All right, 1-877-END Times, our on-air number, and let's go now to Agnes in Minnesota. You're next up.
Hello, Pastor Irvin.
Hello, Agnes. Speak up so I can hear you, please.
Can you hear me clearly now?
I hear you wonderful. I'm all the way over here in Jerusalem, and I can hear you as clear as a bell.
Oh, thank you. Congratulations for the 30th year anniversary. I couldn't follow up last time. I wasn't able to say it during the time, but I watched the archive. My question is, I just read the article from Breaking Israel News about these last high holidays of the Jewish high holidays, Rosh Hashanah and the Sukkot. I read that for the first time ever after 2,000 years, Jews are allowed to pray on the Temple Mount. I've been in Israel twice, 2014, 2015. None of those trips I was able to sit on the Temple Mount or to visit it. The first time ever, I only saw it from the distance, from the highest tower closest to the Temple Mount. Is this against odd with the UNESCO against the ties between Israel and the Jerusalem, or with the Christianity, wanted to erase it, all of those. So can you explain it to me with that one? And thank you. I take the call out of the air. Thanks. God bless you, Pastor Irvin.
Thank you, Agnes, very much. I was in downtown Jerusalem earlier this afternoon, and it was so interesting to have a friend of mine tell me that over the last 2 days there has been unprecedented rejoicing. He said they were dancing in the streets as they celebrated the end of Sukkot. Now, the article is reporting that prayer is being allowed on the Temple Mount. However, I have not actually heard that that is true. I need to read that article carefully and see what they're talking about. I do not think that they have been allowed to pray on the Temple Mount. I'll let you know for certain tomorrow, and I'm sorry that I have not been prepared to address that issue tonight because I've got to read the article. I have it right now in front of me. I just pulled it up. So, Agnes, forgive me for not having that answer right off the cuff. The headline says that they've been allowed to pray on the Temple Mount for the first time in 2,000 years. However, I'll tell you the full truth of that tomorrow on the program. So that's something for all of us to look forward to. Okay, let's get right back to the phones. And Jim, back to you.
All right, let's go now to Texas. And Dave, you're next up on End of the Age.
Hello, Irving. It's exciting to talk
Hello,
to you
David.
live in Israel. Hope y'all are having a great time.
It's a great
over there.
feeling to be here. Yes.
Irving, Vladimir Putin apparently went out on record, one of his latest things that he said, and he's been quite vocal the past couple of months about things in the background of the election about World War III, but he went on to say this, and I take it that he's supporting Donald Trump, because he said if Donald Trump does not get elected, the world will have World War III. And that's a quoted quote from him. I just heard that on another program yesterday. But there's lots of things he's saying, and building bases in Tarshish, a naval base, and in Syria, and also air base in Syria. They're constructing Russian bases. So this thing is totally being set up apart after the election or during the election for what's going to happen after the election, if not before. It'll probably be after, but who knows? Obama may still be in power until January the 20th. Of course it will. But who knows what's going to take place. So this election, even from Vladimir Putin's standpoint for the American people, he turned it into a warning. Vote Trump or World War III.
You know, David, we are on real thin ice right now. One of the most bone-chilling things that I have seen was this announcement that they have this new nuclear missile. One missile
I just heard about that.
can wipe out a nation the size of France. I mean, think about that. France, 70 or 80 million people. And one missile can cover a territory. France is not a small country.
Right.
They say that it could wipe out the entire state of Texas. So this is ominous for all of us. And we also know that Russia is going to end up coming down against Israel at the Battle of Armageddon. So I am no friend of Russia by any means. Now, what stance Vladimir Putin takes, I cannot tell you for sure. However, he is certainly inserting Russia into the power broker position of the Middle East. He is now controlling Syria. He is aligned with Iran. Iran is now moving into Iraq. So Russia's power star is rising right now. And there is going to be a world war, as you know very well, David. We've talked about it many times on this program.
Yes,
the only question is, how do we get here? I've actually wondered if maybe, if Hillary does win, that she might preside over this war, this 1/3 of mankind, and that would
Putin thinks she will, if she wins.
Yeah. And so, I mean, nobody should want this war. I don't care who's elected. God help us, because this war is going to be 40 times World War II. And so no one should talk flippantly about this war. But it is coming. It's going to happen. And we can see the piece of the puzzle almost coming into place right in front of our eyes right now.
Salvation is the most important for each individual on this earth. Thank you.
Well, it is, because this life is temporary for all of us. We're all going to die, but we're all going to live forever somewhere. And the important thing is that you know that you know that you know where
Amen.
You're going to live forever somewhere. And we don't need to leave that to a roll of the dice. We need to be more educated about our salvation than any other single subject. No matter what kind of fields we're in, we need to put our salvation front and center for our attention. That's how important it really is. Thank you, David, very much. We appreciate the phone call. I'll just give you just momentarily, this response. This comes from an article from BreakingIsraelNews.com for first time ever Jews allowed to pray on Temple Mount. Let me just give you the first paragraph. In a not-so-subtle response to the recent UNESCO resolutions denying all connection between Jerusalem and the Jewish people, record-breaking numbers of Jews ascended to the Temple Mount over the 3-week holiday period encompassing Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot. And in an incredible reversal of the usual status quo, some were even allowed to pray there. While the number of non-Muslim visitors permitted on the Temple Mount is usually restricted, a relatively quiet holiday season allowed for record numbers of Jewish visitors to ascend, and marking a small but significant shift in enforced policy to discreetly pray at the site, which is considered the holiest in Judaism. All told, over 3,000 Jews, many of them religious, visited the Mount over the holiday period. So all I can tell you is, one more paragraph, Jewish visitors reported a certain relaxation of the restrictions on prayer and religious rituals in the compound, said Haaretz, of the holiday visits. For example, police did not interrupt anyone who was praying quietly on their own. Now, again, I have not double documented this, but that comes straight from Breaking Israel News, and it is a significant development. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the beat goes on. Everything is moving. All the furniture is ready for the building of the third temple. There's pressure on for a peace agreement. It is coming. The impetus for Jews to return to the Temple Mount is stronger right now than it's been in 2,000 years. I mean, don't go to sleep at the wheel. We are in the end time right now. Now, what should we be doing? Trembling? No. We should be preparing for the greatest revival the world has ever known. I outline all this in our series, From Here to Armageddon. I think it's mandatory for every person to get this 8-lesson series. The number to call is 1-800-END-TIME. That's 1-800-363-8463. Just call 1-800-END-TIME. Ask for the From Here to Armageddon series. I'll see you tomorrow.
End of the Age is a production of End Time Ministries. This broadcast will be available on our website, endtime.com, in the archives section. On our website, you'll also find more information about how current events are fulfilling Bible prophecy. To reach our operators, call 1-800-END-TIME. That's 1-800-363-8463. End Time Ministries is partner supported. We would like to say thank you to our partners who made this broadcast possible. To do what Matthew 24:14 said, to reach the world with the gospel of the kingdom.